Hi, I'm Holly Dodson. I've been getting questions about how my Exploring American History Through Literature class works. And the backbone of the class is our interactive history journal. So each week, we're creating, in just a basic composition notebook, an interactive history journal that has pages of information and activities and questions about that information that we read. In addition, I supplement this basic reading that we're doing in class with trade books. And trade books are just consumer books rather than textbooks. A lot of textbooks I find to be dry. So instead of using a history book to learn history, we use books that you can purchase on Amazon or get from the library. Books like George versus George, which is a really cool book that tells both sides of the Revolutionary War. Exploration and Conquest, which talks about the early explorers and why they traveled and where they traveled. In addition to nonfiction trade books, we also read historical fiction books, books like Blood on the River and Tolliver's Secret, but they teach history from a fiction standpoint and make it more interesting and exciting. So all of these components work together in this class. The history journal, the social studies notebook, gives the basic information and provides discussion questions and written activities for the kids to learn the basics. And then we expand on that with nonfiction books and historical fiction novels. So it's a really well-rounded class that teaches kids history in a way that I think is interesting, exciting, and a lot of fun. So I hope you'll check this class out. I'll be teaching it again this coming year, and it's a great opportunity for kids to learn history in a fun way that gets them excited. So for those of you who would like even more details about the class, the next section of the video shows actual materials and books that we use in the class. So this is an example of a page from our interactive journal. It's called "What Was the Shot Heard Round the World?" And it's a brief explanation of the beginning of the Revolutionary War. So students read this. They do a close read where I encourage them to highlight important information, take notes in the margins. Then we discuss it as a class, and then students independently answer some questions on another activity type of a page. Then for homework, we're supplementing these brief readings and discussions with books that we read at home. Here we are going into a deeper dive in one of our nonfiction trade books, more information about the shot heard round the world with interesting text that goes more in depth and fun pictures that keep the students interested and engaged. I think this is a really interesting book because unlike most books, it talks about the Revolutionary War from both sides, King George versus George Washington. And it talks about where they were both coming from, why they both thought that they were right, and just makes students realize that there really are two sides to every story. Two of the novels or historical fiction books that we read during the Revolutionary War and colonialization part of our units are Blood on the River, which talks about Jamestown and is a very exciting novel that most students really enjoy. And we also read Tolliver's Secret, which is a classic book that's been around forever about a young girl who does some heroic things to help the war effort. These kinds of books really bring history to life for students and makes it much more interesting. When we talk about the Oregon Trail, one of the books students read is this one, The Oregon Trail, an Interactive History Adventure. What I love about this book is that students choose their own adventure and are experiencing a lot of the hardships through the book that people who were actually traveling the Oregon Trail traveled, and they can make different choices, and the book has different outcomes. And then they can start again, try different choices, and end up with different outcomes. Kids really enjoy this book as well. Learning about the Constitution can be a really dry topic, but books like this one, We're Writing the Constitution, make it a lot more interesting. There are lots of funny side notes about the different men who wrote the Constitution, what their personalities were like, and some behind-the-scenes look at that era that we don't usually read about in typical boring, dry history books. So again, I try to make it as fun and interesting as possible by choosing books that the students really enjoy reading and discussing.